Hello listeners, we are your co-hosts Jeanine Bailey and Marie Quigley for the Empower World Coaching and Leadership Podcast. Empower World brings guests who are making a difference to the world to inspire coaches and leaders who lead with mind, heart and soul. Welcome everybody to the next episode of the Empower World Coaching and Leadership Podcast. And it's been a little while, but I'm so pleased that we're back together again, Marie, back in the Zoom room to record our next podcast. So how are you doing today?
Yes, I'm doing great. It's a bit wet and rainy here in the UK, but nothing new.
Well, it's still beautiful here down south in Australia. It's down way south beyond where it's been raining very heavily in New South Wales and Queensland. And so thinking of all the people that are there that have been impacted by that. And I did have a little break, which was impacted by the rain. And so, yeah, really hoping that people come through this as best as they can. Whereas Victoria has been, it's been sunny and there hasn't been much rain, which is quite unusual. So I'm enjoying the last of the summer, autumn.
Lovely. Fantastic.
So Marie, we thought we would bring in contracting. It's something that we're noticing with the people that we work with, new coaches particularly. Contracting is something that can be enhanced and used in a very, very, very powerful way to support our clients. So over to you, Marie.
Yeah, it is such an important part of the process of coaching, and many coaches, not just new coaches, but we have found that coaches, when we're mentoring coaches who we haven't trained, that actually the term contracting can be new to them. Maybe they've heard it in a form of designing the alliance or creating an agreement with the client, but the word contracting can be a new experience for them to think about. And there are many ways we contract with our client. Of course, we have the contracting, that the written agreement that we use with our client. But what we're talking about today is the contracting with the client at the beginning of every session, so that you support the client in their thinking process to get even more clear about what they want to work on. Because clients will come, tends to be, generalization here, but tends to be with a superficial goal. Even though it matters to the client, it's a top of mind goal. And actually through contracting questions, getting curious to find out actually what's underneath this, what's the reason you're bringing this to coaching. And not only that, what do you want to leave with at the end of the session? When you get curious about that, it's interesting how the conversation can lead to a much clearer definition of what the client wants to walk away with.
Yeah, so it's that contracting piece in relation to the goal and agreeing upon the goal. It potentially takes more time than many coaches, particularly new coaches, will realize. And we often hear when we're listening to recordings that coaches will take the first thing that they hear, and generally the first thing that they hear is quite long. When a client is explaining why they've come to the session and what they want, they often will say it in many words, and a coach will often make up. This is for newer coaches, not always, but often they will make up what the client wants. So there's no clear contract and agreement in terms of what the client really wants from the session beyond the surface of what they share. And so it's by having a conversation that can take a little bit of time to get curious about what the client brings into the session. So it's listening out for what's really underneath the surface of this story that my client has brought in. So getting curious, starting to double click, as we would say, on key things or why this particular goal is important for them. So by being curious and really supporting the client to understand, again, what is below the surface of this original goal that the client brings in. So it will take some time to move backwards and forwards with the coach and the client to understand a clear goal for the session. And the shorter that goal is, that contracted goal is for the session, the easier it is for both you as a coach or you as the client to be able to recognize where you're going in the session. You know, what is it that is truly going to be of support, high value, that will be life changing at the end of the session.
Yeah, absolutely, Jeanine. I did a demonstration for a community not so long ago, and working with the client, she came on, she stated what she wanted, and we stayed with what she wanted for about maybe 15 minutes, actually. And we were getting curious, what does that mean? What's happening there? I noticed when you said that, you took a deep breath. So all of those reflection questions, all of the coaching that we do, but we still hadn't determined a goal. And we kept going back and forth in this dance, and the client's thinking got wiser and deeper and clearer as she was processing what she was thinking. And so then, as the coach, I said, so what are you becoming aware of now that you didn't at the beginning when you stated your goal, and what's changed about this? And so this went on, as I say, for quite a while, and she got really clear, succinct, something that she wanted to walk away with. And not just that, not just what she wanted to work on in the session, but what she wanted to leave with at the end, the evidence that she would see. And when the coaches were unpacking the session, they said, gosh, I would have taken the first goal and moved straight into coaching. But what happened was there was so much awareness created by contracting powerfully that the work was being done as she was determining what she wanted. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely, Marie. Absolutely. And I'm imagining, as you supported this client to get curious through your questioning, her goal and why it's important, and again, what's happening underneath it. She's connecting. I think you said it was a she. Is connecting with all the senses as well. So it's taking the client out of the mind and into the whole wisdom of the mind, body, soul, to recognize what is going to be powerful to work on. So it's really, that contracting piece is really about supporting the client to identify, what they can work on that is going to be life-changing, potentially, that's going to matter, that's going to make a difference, that is potentially going to be powerful. So yes, it absolutely made sense as you shared, because if we work at the surface goal, that's perhaps where the coaching might not stay. But that, digging nicely, deeply, I could hear that the value that you provided that client by doing that exploration through contracting questions to identify, what is it that you specifically want to work on today, versus it being a conversation that can just flow and perhaps go around different pathways and still may be really powerful. And this way, by contracting, when it comes to the end of the session, you can both check in to see, did the client get what they wanted? What are they learning? What are they appreciating? How does this support them with the rest of their life from that moment forward? So the client walks away knowing that they have got incredible value by exploring based on the contracted goal.
I think that's a key. So a lot of new coaches, and myself included when I was new, I wanted to give the client the best of me and give than value for money. So I thought, okay, we've got a goal. Now we've got to rush through. We've got to get some solutions here, get into action, and make sure they get what they wanted. So I was making lots of assumptions and also trying to be a good coach by doing coaching instead of being with my client or my thinker, the thinker in the session, to support them in that thinking to become deeper and wiser in their knowledge of themselves. So this is where a lot of new coaches struggle. And the big shift from ACC and PCC coaching to MCC coaching is that the coach is not afraid to stay in exploration stage, to just stay maybe the whole time in finding out what is going on right now for the client. Because it feels a little bit counterintuitive to stay with exploration when the client has maybe said they want to, work on time management. And so there's a pull and a push of the coach to want to deliver for the client's sake, but actually they're doing a disservice because they're moving too quickly instead of staying. Because we can always bring that question about time management into the end. So what have you learned about yourself in relation to time management? And they'll always have learned something because you stayed in the curiosity of the exploration.
Yeah. And so, Marie, when you talk about time management there, what I'm making up here is that through the contracting, I'm making up confidently that if a client brings in time management, then when you do that initial that contracting, that exploration around the agreed contract, time management is not actually the goal. It'll be something else that is deeper, related to mindset, related to what are the limiting or empowering beliefs around this. So the goal will potentially move from time management to perhaps values. It could be doing values work. And so at the end of the session, so that even though the contracted goal has changed, but at the end of the session, you can bring in that initial surface goal of time management. What have you learned that will support your time management that you brought in at the beginning of the session? So it's all connected.
It's all connected, and we don't want to discount that first goal because it's important to the client. Yes, they want to be better at time management, for example. But because we've stayed with contracting and we've decided to get curious, how come you're bringing it to coaching? You can Google about time management if you really want, but what's it like for you to not be efficient in your time? What are your beliefs about yourself? What values are you honoring or dishonoring when you are not able to manage your time effectively? What emotions are you experiencing? How do you speak to yourself? What saboteurs are popping up? So there's so much you could get curious about in the exploration to maybe, so say we go from initially time management to a lack of self-belief, and the client wants to have more self-belief, more confidence in themselves. And at the end of the session, they'll know that because they'll have a different sensation in their body, or they'll be feeling a specific emotion, or the way they'll be speaking to themselves will be very different to how they're speaking with each other now. And you can see that deeper goal, because of the contracting that comes out, is going to be more transformational for the client than just stepping straight into time management.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you're sharing here is supporting the client to understand from all those different perspectives, not just the thoughts, it's the physiology, it's the emotions, it's the sensations. So it's tapping into, again, the whole self, which again is the most powerful way of supporting the learning when it's really truly felt.
Yeah.
Not just thought, but really truly felt in our whole body. So listeners, we trust that you have taken some value out of this conversation around contracting. Hopefully it's clearer for those who perhaps weren't so aware about contracting. And, we'd love to hear your feedback on our podcasts, and suggestions would be very welcome. So before we wrap up, Marie, any final words of wisdom that you'd like to share?
Well, we've heard many times, and we say it too, that the contracting is the work. So be brave enough to experiment with this, test it out for yourself, get the evidence for yourself, build up your own reflections, practice on how you do your contracting, listen to other coaches doing great contracting, learn from them. You'll get even better results for your clients.
Yes. And so always remember that the goal that the client initially brings into a session, it will be surface. There is so much delicious stuff underneath in terms of the beliefs, the emotions, etc., etc. So get curious, be that super detective, and support your client to go to those deeper places. Listeners, thank you for being with us. We hope you can join us on the next episode.
Thanks for listening. You can find out more about us on our website, www.empower-world.com, and on our social media networks, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Be empowered.